Title: Built in the Stretch: How 1 Year of Growth Changed Everything. Written by Iyabo. Narrated by Julie. Introduction. Welcome. If you picked up this book, it means you're ready to reflect on your journey, ready to face the stretch, and ready to discover something new about yourself. This book is the story of a year unlike any other year, filled with unexpected challenges, hard lessons, moments of doubt, and incredible growth. It's a year when I learned what it truly means to stretch, to push past my limits, to embrace discomfort, and to find gratitude even in the hardest seasons. You might be in the middle of your own stretch right now, feeling the pull of change or the weight of uncertainty. Or maybe you're looking back, wondering how far you've come and what the future holds. Wherever you are, this book is for you. Inside these pages, you'll find honest reflections, stories of resilience, and heartfelt encouragement. But more than that, you'll find invites to lean into your own journey, to see the beauty in growth, and to trust that every step forward, no matter how small, matters. Thus isn't a perfect story. It's not a blueprint or a step-by-step guide. It's a real-life journey with twists, stumbles, and breakthroughs. And it's proof that stretching, though hard, is where transformation happens. So, I invite you to read with an open heart, to laugh, to cry, to reflect, and to take action. May this year you learn to stretch be the year you find new strength, new hope, and new joy. Thank you for allowing me to share this part of my story with you. Let's stretch together. Chapter 1: The Priceless Innocence of a 6-year-old. It all started with a simple conversation with my 6-year-old daughter. "How has your year been so far?" I asked her one evening as we sat together, unwinding from the day. Without missing a beat, she smiled and said, "The fun fair and the carol service were the best." Her answer caught me off guard. No mention of struggles, no analysis of what went right or wrong, no worries about the future, just pure, unfiltered joy. I couldn't help but laugh, not at her, but at the stark contrast between her perspective and what an adult might say. Ask most adults, and they'll talk about business challenges, career goals, financial burdens, the complexity of relationships, or the endless responsibilities that seem to multiply with each passing month. But for her, the highlights were laughter, community, and celebration. In that moment, I realized how much we, as adults, complicate life. The innocence of a child is priceless, a gift that we often forget exists within us. And yet, we all once held that innocence. We all once looked at life with wonder instead of worry. Rediscovering simplicity. Children don't dwell on yesterday or obsess about tomorrow. They live new in this moment, and in doing so, they unknowingly model the very essence of mindfulness and presence. They remind us that joy doesn't always come from achievement, it often comes from simply being. That conversation made me stop and ask myself, when was the last time I celebrated something small? When was the last time I let delight take the lead over deadlines? Her answer was an invitation to return to wonder. As adults, we've been trained to pursue success, climb ladders, hustle hard, and analyze everything. But the cost is often our joy, our spontaneity, and our ability to marvel at the simple things. Her joy was a reflection of what I had forgotten, that life is still beautiful, even when it's messy. That moments of laughter and community, however fleeting, can be the anchors that hold us through storms. What children teach us about perspective. Children don't ask if the moment is perfect. They enjoy it because it exists. They don't wait for a promotion or a bank balance to feel worthy. They find magic in bubbles, stories, and hugs. Their world is rich with meaning, even when we call it mundane. There's something sacred in that. What if we started looking at life through their lens? What if we measured the quality of our year not by what we accumulated, but by the love we experienced, the laughter we shared, and the lessons we learned? That conversation with my daughter became a mirror, a quiet but powerful reflection of how far I had drifted from the simple joys, and it stirred something in me. A gentle wake-up call. Maybe you're like me, driven, ambitious, trying to make something out of every year, always evaluating your performance and progress. And while there's nothing wrong with growth, it's easy to forget that gratitude isn't found at the finish line, it's cultivated on the journey. That evening, I started journaling again, not to plan, not to fix, but to notice. To notice what was good, what was beautiful, what was worth remembering. I found that the more I looked for joy, the more it showed up. Gratitude isn't about ignoring the hard stuff. It's about choosing to see the good, even in the midst of it. And children do that instinctively. Their resilience isn't shaped by experience, it's shaped by trust. They trust that things will be okay. They trust that fun will come. They trust that love is near. What a beautiful way to live. Reflection and action. Pause and reflect. When was the last time you laughed, really laughed? Can you recall a small moment this year that made your heart feel full? What would your self say about the way you're living now? Your action step. Tonight, ask yourself the same question I asked my daughter. How has your year been so far? Write your answer. Then write it again, this time from the perspective of a child. Let yourself dream, remember, and delight. Even better, ask a child in your life. Let their answer remind you of what really matters. This is the gift of childlike innocence, not to escape reality, but to soften it with joy, simplicity, and presence. And sometimes, that's the very stretch we need. Chapter 2. A year of 50/50ths for me. This year has been a mixed baggy quill, parts, challenge and triumph, pressure and peace, fear and faith. It's been a year of self-discovery, accountability, and bold steps that pushed me far beyond my comfort zone. At the beginning of the year, I wrote down my plans with enthusiasm. Big plans, scary plans, the kind of goals that make you question your audacity. I dared to believe, but the journey from believing to becoming wasn't paved with perfection. It was bumpy, messy, and at times felt downright unfair. There were moments when I cried silently, wondering if I had heard God wrong. Is this by force? I whispered during one particularly low moment. If it's not your will, just tell me to stop, and I will. But heaven was quiet, not the silence of absence, but the silence of strength. The kind of silence that says, keep going. I'm stretching you, not punishing you. It wasn't a no. It was an invitation to stretch. The blessing in the breaking. Some days felt like walking barefoot on broken glass. Every step toward my dreams seemed to demand more courage than I thought I had. I wasn't just chasing a goal, I was being reshaped, realigned, refined. We often want transformation to feel smooth, comfortable, predictable. But real growth, it feels like disruption. It feels like letting go of everything familiar while holding on to a promise that hasn't manifested yet. And yet, in the discomfort, something sacred was happening. I was becoming. Each note led me closer to clarity. Each fall reminded me that even in weakness, I could rise stronger. And each stretch, though painful, expanded my capacity for more. I came to realize that God wasn't punishing me with pressure. He was preparing me for purpose. The stretch zone. You've probably heard of the comfort zone, that cozy, predictable place where nothing grows. But there's another zone, the stretch zone. It's not as intense as the panic zone, where you're overwhelmed, but it's far beyond comfort. It's the place where you're learning, moving, trusting, trembling, believing, and evolving all at once. And that's where I spent most of my year. What I learned is this: the stretch zone is sacred ground. It's where potential meets process. It's where prayers are answered through persistence. It's where you trade certainty for surrender. It's where God meets you, not with quick fixes, but with quiet strength, faith in the fire if you're walking through a 50/50th season where one part of your life is blooming and the other feels barren. Let me assure you, you are not alone. Sometimes the stretch doesn't make sense. You're doing your best, showing up with heart and hustle, yet progress feels slow. But don't mistake slow for stuck, and don't confuse delay with denial. God is still working in the waiting. What we see as setbacks are often setups. What feels like resistance might actually be training. And sometimes what looks like the wilderness is where identity is forged. This year wasn't just about results. It was about resilience. It was about learning to stand, even when the ground felt unsteady. Reflection and action, pause and reflect. What part of your year felt like a stretch? When did you want to quit, but didn't hand? What did that reveal about you? What has the 50/50ths taught you about trust, patience, and divine timing? Your action step. Write a letter to your future self from the perspective of someone who survived this season. Remind yourself of what you've overcome. Speak life over what's to come. Let your words be both a testimony and a prophecy. Stretching isn't failure. Stretching is growth. Stretching is proof that you're not who you were at the beginning of the year, and you're still becoming who you were born to be. So don't resent the stretch. Respect it. Welcome it. Thank it, because it's not breaking you. It's building you. Chapter 3. Falling and Rising. One of the hardest, most humbling lessons I learned this year was how to fall and how to rise again with grace. Falling isn't failure, it's feedback. But let's be honest, it hurts. It shakes your confidence. It challenges your faith. It stirs up old insecurities that whisper, you're not enough. You are foolish to even try. I've heard those voices. Some days they were louder than truth, louder than hope, louder than reason. But something inside me refused to let the fall be the final chapter. I remember sitting on the floor one night, my plans unraveling, tears forming a silent prayer. I didn't have elegant words. I didn't need them. The ache in my chest spoke volumes, but in that stillness, something sacred happened. Not a dramatic breakthrough, not a sudden miracle, just a reminder. You're not done yet. Redefining failure, we live in a world that glorifies perfection, but real growth often comes through imperfect progress. Every great story includes chapters of confusion, missteps, and raw vulnerability. I had moments where I felt like I was watching others live the dream I had written down for myself. Have you ever felt that way? Like you birthed the idea, nurtured the seed, but someone else picked the fruit? That pain is real, and if you're not careful, it can harden your heart and drown your drive. But comparison is a thief, and envy is a liar. Their win isn't your loss. Their progress doesn't cancel your purpose. I had to remind myself that my timeline is not broken. My calling is not on pause. My story is not over. The power of rising doesn't always mean charging forward with fireworks and fanfare. Sometimes it means simply getting up again, brushing off the disappointment, and choosing to believe that tomorrow can still be good. Sometimes rising means praying through clenched teeth. Sometimes it means showing up with shaky faith. Sometimes it means starting again, not because you feel ready, but because you know giving up isn't who you are. And every time you rise, you become more of who you were created to be. God doesn't waste your falls. He uses them to build resilience, refine your character, and redirect your steps. Every time I thought I had failed, I realized I was just being repositioned. Every setback carried within it a seed of strategy for the next season. Lessons from the valley. It was in the valley that I discovered I am more than my mistakes. I can begin again at any moment. Courage isn't loud, it's the quiet choice to keep going. And most importantly, I learned that God is just as present in the pit as he is on the peak. We celebrate mountaintops, but valleys hold the wisdom that changes us. When I finally rose, it wasn't because the storm passed. It was because I chose to stand in the rain with faith as my umbrella. And I learned that sometimes rising means learning to dance in the downpour instead of waiting for clear skies. Reflection and action. Pause and reflect. What moment this year felt like a fall for you? What did that experience reveal about your strength, your values, and your priorities? How did you react, and what did you learn in the process? Your action step. Write out one painful or disappointing experience you had this year. Then, directly underneath it, write down 3 ways it shaped you, strengthened you, or shifted your perspective for the better. Let your pain become a paragraph of power, so fall if you must. But promise yourself this: you will rise, and when you do, don't apologize for your scars. Don't downplay your healing. Don't shrink your story to make others comfortable. You are still becoming, still stretching, still learning, and every fall is proof that you're reaching for more. Keep rising. Chapter 4. Gratitude in the stretch. Gratitude isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers in the middle of exhaustion, in the silence after disappointment, in the long pause between not yet and almost. Gratitude speaks. When we choose to find light in dark places, peace in uncertain paths, and beauty in the broken. This year stretched me not just physically, emotionally, or mentally, but spiritually. And in the stretching, I discovered a deeper kind of gratitude, one that wasn't tied to outcomes, achievements, or applause. One that was rooted in awareness, intention, and trust. I began to see that growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens in the discomfort of waiting, in the discipline of obedience, and in the courage it takes to keep showing up when everything in you wants to disappear. From grit to gratitude, there were mornings when I woke up feeling overwhelmed, and my to-do list looked like a mountain. My dreams felt distant. My energy felt low. But something shifted when I made a decision, not a feeling. A decision to thank God anyway. Thank him for the lessons I was too tired to process. Thank him for the open doors I couldn't yet see. Thank him for the stretching that felt more like breaking. I started writing down 3 things I was grateful for every night. Some days it was a quiet cup of tea or a deep conversation with a friend. Other days it was I didn't give up. Simple, honest things, but slowly I noticed a change. Gratitude didn't remove the stretch, it redeemed it. It turned pressure into purpose. It turned inconvenience into invitation. It turned delay into development. The stretch reveals the strength. Have you ever stretched a rubber band so far you thought it would snap, but it didn't? That's how I felt some days. Stretched beyond my natural capacity. But it was in that place I discovered something. I had more in me than I realized. We often pray for growth, but growth requires a stretch. And the stretch reveals your endurance, your resilience, your unshakable parts. And in that revelation, there's a new level of appreciation, not for perfection, but for progress. I stopped waiting for everything to be in place before I allowed myself to celebrate. Instead, I learned to celebrate while still in the middle, to praise in the process, to give thanks not because I had arrived, but because I was on the way. A new lens. Gratitude gave me a new lens. I started seeing what I had. Instead of obsessing over what I lacked, I started noticing who was still with me, rather than mourning who had left. I started appreciating the character I was developing, not just the goals I was chasing. Because here's the truth: when you shift your focus, you shift your future. Gratitude is not passive. It's powerful. It fuels perspective. It strengthens purpose. It lifts you when life tries to drag you down. Reflection and action. Take a moment. Ask yourself, what did this year pull out of you? What blessings are buried in the stretch you almost cursed? What did you gain that you wouldn't have had? Life gone exactly as planned. Your action step: start a stretch and gratitude journal. Every night for the next 7 days. Write one moment that stretched you today. One thing you're grateful for even. If it's small, one lesson you're learning through this season. Watch how your spirit begins to soften. Your perspective begins to shift, and your stretch becomes sacred ground. So no, this year wasn't perfect. But it was powerful. It didn't go exactly as I planned, but it prepared me in ways planning never could. I found gratitude not just in the victories, but in the vulnerability. Not just in the blessings, but in the becoming. And that is the miracle of the stretch. It doesn't leave you the same. It leaves you wiser, deeper, more grateful, and infinitely more equipped for what's coming next. Chapter 5. What would you say about your year? What would you say if someone asked you to sum up your year in one sentence? Would your answer be immediate, or would it come with a sigh and a long pause? Would you talk about what you lost or what you found? That question confronted me unexpectedly at my daughter's carol service. The music was rich, the children were radiant, and there was joy in the air. It should have been a simple moment of celebration, but then I ran into an old friend. "How's your year been?" I asked her. She paused, looked down briefly, and then said hard, but strangely, wholly. She went on to share how the year had stripped her of things she once held dear: friendships that faded, grief that visited without warning, and a long season of caring for a loved one battling cancer. Her voice didn't shake. It was steady, reflective, real, and I was struck by the way she described her year, not as a tragedy, not as a waste, but as holy. The unseen battles. That conversation reminded me of something I had forgotten in the whirlwind. Of my own experiences. Everyone is carrying something. Every smile has a story. Every triumph has a tear behind it. Every person you meet is fighting battles you cannot see. We often judge each other, or even ourselves, based on surface-level snapshots. But if you peeled back the layers, you'd find that most people are just doing their best to hold it all together. So let me ask again, what would you say about your year? Would you speak about the failures or the fortitude? Would you recall the loneliness or the lessons? Would you mourn the endings or celebrate the beginnings you didn't expect? The truth is, we don't always get to choose the script of the year, but we always get to choose how we respond. What the stretch taught me this year taught me that pain is a teacher, but it's not the only one. Joy is also a teacher. So is gratitude. So is rest. So is reflection. When I chose to look deeper, I found that even in the hardest months, there were glimmers of hope, a conversation that revived my spirit, a new opportunity that came disguised as a closed door, a deeper version of myself that I had never met before the stretch. I learned to stop romanticizing the perfect year and started honoring the honest year. The year where you did your best with what you had. The year you showed up, stretched, and didn't shrink. Because here's the thing, sometimes survival is success, a different kind of measurement. We often measure our years by how much we accomplished. But what if we measured it by how much we overcame, by how much we healed, by how much we learned to forgive ourselves and others, by how much we showed up even when we felt empty. If you only measured the milestones, you'd miss the quiet courage that happened in the in-between moments. The mornings you got out of bed when you didn't feel like it, the emails you sent, the goals you chased, the tears you wiped, and the times you let go gracefully even when it hurt. You didn't just make it through the year. You were made in the process. Reflection and action. Ask yourself, if you had to write a letter to this year, what would you thank it for? What did you leave behind that no longer serves you? What parts of yourself did you discover or reclaim? Your action step. Write a letter to your year. Start it with, Dear insert year, thank you for. List the unexpected blessings, the growth, the lessons. Then write, I release you now. Release the guilt. Release the pressure. Release the pain. And make space for what's coming next. There's power and perspective in the end. Your year doesn't define you. Your response to the year does. Whether your year was holy, heavy, healing, or a wild mix of all three, there's grace enough to carry you forward. So what would I say about my year? I'd say it was real. It stretched me, it challenged me, but it also refined me, softened me, and reminded me that even broken stories can be beautiful. And I pray that when you look back, you'll see your own courage threaded through the chaos. Because the stretch wasn't for nothing. It was for becoming. Chapter 6. The bigger plan. There comes a point in every journey when your vision gets blurry. You can't see the road ahead. The excitement of the beginning has faded, and the finish line feels too far to chase. That's where trust comes in. Not the passive kind, but the kind you choose when nothing makes sense. That's where I found myself. I had goals mapped out with timelines, checklists, and color-coded calendars. I had vision boards, accountability, partners, and even daily affirmations on my mirror. But despite all of that, the plan didn't unfold the way I thought it would. Doors closed without explanation. Opportunities slipped through my fingers. People I thought would walk the journey with me had their own detours. I was left standing in the hallway of uncertainty, asking the age-old question, God, are you still in this? When the plan doesn't look like the promise, there's a strange kind of tension that happens when you know you've heard God say go, but everything around you screams stop. When you've sown in faith, prayed in secret, worked in silence, still feel like the harvest is delayed. It's in those moments that you must remember. The plan and the promise are not always identical in appearance. Sometimes the path to your purpose includes detours that build character, delays that protect you, doors that close so others can open. We want clarity. God wants trust. Trust. The quiet strength. Trust isn't flashy. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or fanfare. Trust is often invisible. It's in the whispered yes when logic says no. It's in the moments you choose to believe. Something good can come out of a season that felt like loss. I had to learn to trust when I didn't feel strong, when I didn't have control, when I didn't have the full picture. And what I found is that God doesn't ask us to see the whole plan. He asks us to take the next step. That next step might be making a phone call you're afraid to make, starting again after a disappointment, showing up when your heart is still healing. Every act of trust is a seed planted into the soil of purpose, and seeds grow in the dark long before they bloom in the light. The redirection is not rejection. One of the most healing revelations I've had this year is this: what feels like rejection is often redirection. Not every delay is denial. Not every no is the end of the story. Not every loss is a punishment. Sometimes God moves people out of your life because they were only meant for a chapter, not the whole book. Sometimes he pauses a plan because he sees a pothole up ahead that you can't. So if you feel like your life took a turn you didn't expect, know this: you are not off course. You are being rerouted by grace, the gift of divine detours, a kind of wisdom that only comes from not getting what you thought you wanted. You start to see that waiting strengthens faith, disappointment deepens compassion, broken plans reveal unbreakable purpose. The bigger plan doesn't always look impressive. From the outside, it might look slow, quiet, uncelebrated, but make no mistake, it's unfolding in divine timing. You haven't missed your moment, you haven't failed your assignment, and you're not too late. Reflection and action. Ask yourself, what areas of my life have felt like failed plans but might actually be divine detours? Where do I need to release control and embrace trust? What have I gained in seasons of waiting? Your action step. Write out the things that didn't go according to your plan this year. Beside each one, write, God, I trust you with this. Then speak this affirmation out loud. I release the pressure to understand everything. I trust that even what I don't see is working for my good. I walk by faith, not by sight. The bigger plan is still in motion. In the silence, trust still. Speak. So here's what I want to leave you with. Even when the pieces don't fit, even when the wait is long, even when the path feels lonely, you are not abandoned. You are being aligned. There is a bigger plan at work in your life. It's not always visible, but it's always intentional. You may feel stretched, but you are not being broken, you are being built. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize this wasn't the detour, this was the way. Chapter 7. Talk less, act more. There's something seductive about talking. We talk about our dreams. We talk about our goals. We talk about our purpose. We even talk about healing before we've done the work. But here's the truth I had to confront. This year, talk doesn't build, bridges, action does. There came a moment when I looked at the things I'd been planning to do for years and asked myself, when does talking stop and living begin? The courage to begin again. One of the bravest things I did this year was return to something I'd left behind. Writing. My first love. My soul language. My unspoken therapy. I had abandoned it in the busyness of building, in the chaos of life, in the noise of comparison. I used to say, I'll write when things slow down, or I'll start again when I have more clarity. But clarity didn't come in the waiting. It came in the doing. So I picked up my pen and wrote through the fog, through the fear, through the doubt, through the voice that said, you've missed your chance. And what I found on the other side wasn't perfection, it was purpose. Less talking, more becoming. Talking gives us the illusion of progress, but becoming requires movement. You can read every book, attend every webinar, post motivational quotes every Monday morning, and still remain stuck, because transformation doesn't live in your intentions. It lives in your decisions. The version of you you're dreaming of won't come by default. She must be built, choice by choice, day by day. There is no growth without action, and action requires risk. It demands discipline. It asks for commitment. On the days when you're uninspired, and faith on the days when you're unsure. Action over perfection. One of the biggest lies that held me hostage for years was this: if it's not perfect, don't do it. But this year, I gave myself permission to show up messy, to launch scared, to begin before I felt ready, because done is better than talked about, because obedience is more powerful than overthink. So many dreams die on the altar of perfection, but not yours, not this year, not anymore. Keep the vision, ditch the excuses. Your vision is valid. Your dreams are divine. Your ideas are not random, they're seeds. But seeds don't bloom because you talk about the garden. They bloom because you plant, water, protect, and wait. This is the season to stop defending your delay. Stop negotiating with procrastination. Stop rehearsing reasons why it's not the right time. The only way to find out who you can become is to show up and start becoming. Reflection and action. Ask yourself honestly, what have I been talking about doing for far too long? What's one step I can take today that requires less explanation and more execution? What excuses have I dressed up as waiting on the right time? Now, write this affirmation. I move with boldness. I act with intention. I trust the process, even when I can't see the outcome. I am becoming through consistent action. Action challenge. Choose one thing you've been putting off. Write the first step. Do it within the next 48 hours. Then mark it with this word, I. Did it scared, but I did it. Small steps, big shifts, sure stretch may not come from a dramatic leap. It might come from the courage to post the blog, launch the idea, make the call, start the project, say no to fear, say yes to your future. Every action, no matter how small, is a seed of transformation. So start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, and when in doubt, talk less, act more. Let your life be the loudest conversation you ever have. Chapter 8. Stretching into the future as the year draws to a close. I can say with deep certainty, I am not the same person who started this journey. I have been broken and rebuilt. I've doubted and discovered. I've stretched in ways I never thought I couldn't. Somehow I'm still standing. But standing still is not the goal. Stretching isn't just a response to hard seasons. It's a posture for life, who you are. Becoming Matters this year wasn't perfect. It wasn't even pretty. But it was purposeful. The late nights, the deep cries, the heavy silences, they were all necessary. They weren't signs of failure. They were evidence of growth. And now I know who I'm becoming. I am becoming a woman who doesn't shrink when life tests her. A woman who prays, pivots, and persists. A woman who understands that discomfort is not always danger, it's often destiny in disguise. Vision 4. What's next? As I look ahead, I no longer ask, will it be easy? I ask, will I be faithful? Faithful to the call? Faithful to the stretch? Faithful to the version of me I've only begun to discover. Next year won't demand perfection. It will require presence. It will require courage over comfort. It will ask me to show up for myself with the same intensity I show up for others. Because dreams don't manifest through wishing. They manifest through work, through vision, through alignment, through small, daily obedience to a much bigger plan. The stretch isn't over. Here's the truth most people don't tell you. Just because you've grown doesn't mean you're done stretching. Stretching is a lifelong journey. New levels will bring new lessons. New dreams will demand new disciplines. And the same God who carried you through this season is already waiting for you in the next dot. So don't be surprised when the stretch returns. Welcome it, bless it, walk with it. Because every stretch makes you stronger, wider, deeper, better. A letter to your future self, dear, future me. You did not come this far to go back to comfort. You did not survive what tried to break you just to stay safe. You were built for boldness. You are built for vision. You are built for impact. Keep stretching, keep soaring, keep surrendering. Don't forget, everything you need is already within you. With love, the version of you who finally believed. Reflection and action. Stretching into your future means embracing uncertainty as part of the path, accepting that not all growth is visible, releasing the need to prove, and choosing instead to become journal prompt. What new version of you is calling to be born? What part of you do you need to leave behind to step into what's next? What will stretching look like for you in the next season? Declaration for the year ahead. I do not fear the stretch. I welcome it. I trust the process. I walk with purpose. I grow with grace. I am becoming, always becoming. One last word, this book is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a braver, more intentional one. You've read the reflections. You've nodded through the truths. You've felt the sting of recognition now. Take what you've gathered and build. Stretch into new friendships. Stretch into your calling. Stretch into abundance. Stretch into healing. Stretch into joy, because the year that stretched you might just be the one that set you free. Author's blessing, dear reader. As you close this book, I want to leave you with more than words. I want to leave you with a blessing for your journey ahead. May you find the courage to stretch beyond your comfort zones, even when it feels hard, uncertain, or scary. May you learn to embrace every season, the joyful and the painful, as an essential thread in the tapestry of your growth. May gratitude be your constant companion, helping you see abundance even in the smallest moments. May faith rise in your heart to remind you that you are never alone, even when the path is unclear. I pray that you discover the strength within you to rise after every fall, to stand taller after every challenge, and to shine brighter through every storm. May your dreams be bigger than your fears, and may your actions be bolder than your doubts. Remember, growth is not a race or a destination. It is a daily invitation to stretch deeper, love wider, and live fuller. Trust in the process, trust in yourself, and trust that the best version of you is still unfolding. Thank you for allowing me to share this part of my story with you. May your story be one of resilience, hope, and limitless possibility. With all my heart, Iyabo. Author's blessing, dear reader. As you close this book, I want to leave you with more than words. I want to leave you with a blessing for your journey ahead. May you find the courage to stretch beyond your comfort zones, even when it feels hard, uncertain, or scary. May you learn to embrace every season, the joyful and the painful, as an essential thread in the tapestry of your growth. May gratitude be your constant companion, helping you see abundance even in the smallest moments. May faith rise in your heart to remind you that you are never alone, even when the path is unclear. I pray that you discover the strength within you to rise after every fall, to stand taller after every challenge, and to shine brighter through every storm. May your dreams be bigger than your fears, and may your actions be bolder than your doubts. Remember, growth is not a race or a destination. It is a daily invitation to stretch deeper, love wider, and live fuller. Trust in the process, trust in yourself, and trust that the best version of you is still unfolding. Thank you for allowing me to share this part of my story with you. May your story be one of resilience, hope, and limitless possibility. With all my heart,